Hey guys, it's the WalterFootball.com After Dark show for April 17, 2024. It's 1 week until the 2024 NFL draft. It's or 1 week plus 2 days until the NFL draft. It's pretty surreal. So we're going to get going here with some NFL draft content. We're going to do a pair of mock drafts today. I have one, Jacob has one. We're going to just compare picks and just go all the way down in the first round and talk about our differences and whatnot, or similarities. I'm sure we'll have some similarities at the very top. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that would mean a lot to us. If you really want to help support the show, please consider super chats or super stickers. We had a lot of them last week. It's just really, really grateful for them. Kevin Kovac with, I felt like almost $50 or $60 worth of super stickers. It was super helpful. I think we had John Sanders 911. We had Slew with his 555 and 444. Carmen with $7 worth of super stickers. So all that was great. And it really means a lot because these YouTube ads pay nothing. I say this all the time, and I actually looked it up, what we earned the last show that we didn't have a super chat or super sticker, which was last Wednesday. It was like $1.13. So like it just really pays nothing. So even like a $2 super chat is like almost double what we get normally. We're also brought to you by me. I wrote a book. It's called Jerks of the College Years. You can find it on Amazon, and it's basically Jerks of the Week, but with my stories from my college years at Penn State. I went there for 6 years, so as you can imagine, I had some crazy times there. I met some insane people, as you can see on the cover. A lot of weirdos there. So I compiled all my stories into one book from Penn State. So I think you guys will enjoy it if you like Jerks of the Week. So we're joined once again by Jacob Camenker from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Can't believe the draft is in 8 or 9 days, depending on when you're watching this. And I'm excited to finally get my first mock draft of the year cranked out. This is my first. It's crazy. It gets later every year. This year, especially because some of the major sporting event calendar outside of the NFL got pushed back. So it's full out crunch mode over here, and I'm looking forward to trying to suss this thing out like we always do.
Yeah, for sure. It's crunch time, and I'm also chasing my kids around all day, so it's extra difficult for me. I was like falling asleep while on the on the toilet earlier, just from being so tired from working and chasing the kids around. But all that's a lot of fun. So I can't wait till the draft. I wish we had a little bit more time, but I'm looking forward to a lot. Degeneraton says, evening, James. Degeneraton also helped us last week with some super chats, so thank you, Degeneraton, as well. Sue says, don't be a jerk, by the book and have some laughs. Thanks, Lou. And then Eric says, with this cryptic message, 746 was clearly just a suggestion. I think what he saw here was I posted the video live around 10:46. And that's when I sent the invite to you, and then I sent the wrong link in the invite. That's why we're starting late. So brilliant move on my part. But I think what he's seeing here is West Coast time for him. So I think he got confused there. That's my guess. And then Sue asking, I can't figure out Jacob's shirt. So I can't figure it out either. What is it?
This is the San Antonio Brahmas from the United Football League. They're one
Nice.
of the spring football teams. So I break out all my spring football gear around this time of year, and it was finally warm enough where I could wear a T-shirt up here today. So that was a beautiful thing.
It was nice. It was nice here the past 2 days. Unfortunately, it's going to rain for us tomorrow. It feels like it always rains on Wednesday. I don't know if that's the case with you. And there's no rhyme or reason for it, but I notice it because I always take my son to swim lessons on Wednesday. That's basically the only time I leave the house. Plus, I go to New Jersey to enter my Rainmakers lineups, and it's always raining. I swear, every Wednesday it's always raining. I don't know. It feels like someone has it out for me and wants me to just drive in the rain and never when it's sunny. So
That's got to be it, because I feel like it has been cyclically the same every week. Like we get a
yeah.
Wednesday night into Thursday often, so adds up because where we are in the jet stream. I know all this weather lingo from my dad. That's about my knowledge of weather right there.
Nice. Yeah, I hopefully that that changes. But anyway, let's get started on our mock draft. So we'll go pick by pick because I don't have your mock on the screen. So I'll say my pick and then you say yours, and then we could talk about it. And I don't think we need to talk much about this one. I have Caleb Williams going to the Bears. I assume you have the same thing.
I do, yeah. I don't think there's any doubt about this at any point. The Bears signaled they were going quarterback when they traded Justin Fields, and now we know it's going to be Caleb Williams. So he's going to be the guy there, and they're hoping he'll be the next franchise quarterback for the Bears, and I think he's got a shot to do it.
Yeah, that's the only visit he took. And I heard speculation that they were installing their offense when he was visiting. So, like I said before, unless he falls down the stairs or gets kidnapped by aliens, like he's probably going to be the number one pick. All right, number two. Curious to see which quarterback you have to the Redskins. Charlie Campbell reported that the Redskins will be taking quarterback, and they have been declining all trade offers. I have Jaden Daniels going to the Redskins. I Drake May here last week, but according to Charlie's report, he said sources are saying that they think that Daniels is going to go to the Redskins. Now, this isn't. I don't think it's a direct source. He is Charlie has so many of those. So, but I don't think it's a direct source from the Redskins. I just think I think it's people in the know telling him what they think the Redskins are going to do, which isn't the most reliable, but I do think it's probably going to be Daniels, but it could be May, it could be McCarthy, but Daniels is my best guess. Who do you have going to the Redskins?
Yeah, I've had Daniels locked in here for a couple months now. It just seemed like the momentum based off the reports coming from people like Charlie and other people in the know. I know Adam Schefter said that the lean is sort of on Jaden Daniels. He said that maybe a week or so ago. So I think I'm going to stick with that as well. I just think he fits Cliff Kingsbury's offense really well, and I don't know which of him or Drake May is more polished, but when I watched them work out, I saw a few things that Drake May kind of has to work on a little bit more, just with accuracy and in terms of mechanics and footwork, all correctable things. But I think Daniels is a little more experienced and just that good fit in that offense. I think we'll give him the slight edge, but you can't go wrong with either prospect in theory. So I think so long as it's one of those two guys, they'll be happy. But I think they're going to go with Daniels here.
Kevin Kovac with the $10 super sticker. Thanks so much, Kevin. Just really appreciate your support. Like I said before, you were so great last week, and thank you so much again. This is like almost 10x what we would get normally, so it's a huge deal. Thank you so much. If you have any questions or comments, just post them. We'll push it to the top right away. I agree with what you said. I think Jaden Daniels is more NFL ready, and I think that. I've heard the comparison of Drake May to Josh Allen in that, like, Josh Allen was pretty raw entering the NFL. And now, like, I remember thinking with Josh Allen, it's like, all right, this guy is going to be pretty bad in year one. Like, we're going to see some glimpses, but like, he's going to make a lot of mistakes. And then year two, I think he's going to get a lot better. And then year three, I think that's what we're going to see a potential Pro Bowl quarterback. That's what I think. I think I wrote that on the site. So I feel like the same sort of way about Drake May. I think he's going to get off to a slow start, but I think he's going to improve exponentially. I think as long as he can reach his potential. You never know. I mean, guys can bust all the time, but I think the potential is there for him to be a Pro Bowler, but down the road in a couple of years.
Yeah, I see it similarly. I think Drake May's. I compare him a little bit to Justin Herbert too. I think he has kind of that Herbert syndrome where in that draft, Herbert became the QB3 behind Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa, and people really were kind of like looking for reasons to be down on them because Jordan Love was kind of the sexy quarterback sleeper prospect, has all the tools type of guy. So Justin Herbert, people really weren't excited about, but he turned out to be a good player. I think Drake May is going to be in a very similar boat. I don't think he'll be quite as polished as Herbert was when he first got in there. Herbert played more in college than May did, but I think that trajectory or the Josh Allen type trajectory where it might be a little rocky early, but it's going to even out and be really smooth playmaker. I think that's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, I could see that. Bryce saying, though, Drake May is Trubisky 2.0 until proven otherwise. I wasn't a fan of Trubisky so much entering the NFL back in 2017. Like, I like Mahomes more than him. And I wasn't sure what to think about Watson. I knew that he was kind of like a natural born leader. Like, I heard stories about like when he took his 30 visit to Houston, like all the veterans are like following him around like he was some superstar, and that kind of sold me on him from a leadership standpoint. But I thought Mahomes was like head and shoulders above everyone in that draft, and like I just thought Trubisky was like, I was like, I don't know why he's going first over Mahomes and Watson. Like, actually maybe Watson, but definitely Mahomes, and I just didn't get that. But I think May has more talent than Trubisky. I really don't know why Trubisky was pushed up that hard. It felt almost like not nearly as egregious, but like it felt like a Christian Ponder / like Blaine Gabbert type of hype that was surrounding him. Like guys who went in the first round for no reason. Like, I mean Trubisky was a better prospect than them, but I felt like it's sort of the same vein. I thought,
Yeah, Trubisky only ever really had an Andy Dalton type ceiling. I think that was he had a good arm, but not great. And he had solid tape, but nothing special. Like I was with you. I had Mahomes as my number one quarterback. I think Trubisky was my number two in that year's class. I was not high on Watson. That was an error on my part in terms of how he played in his first stint with the Texans and everything. But yeah, I don't think Trubisky and May have much in common outside of the fact that they both went to UNC. I think May has a much bigger arm and just way more upside overall. Like the best we're going to get out of Trubisky is like Andy Dalton at his prime when he was like, oh, you can be an above average quarterback who can get really hot for 4-game stretches. Drake May has the potential to be maybe a star player, maybe not a superstar, but a star.
Yeah. Alex saying funny. The first time I saw Josh Allen in college, I instantly thought he was going to be modern day Brett Favre. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I could definitely see that. Like he definitely has the gunslinger thing. Mike saying this draft reminds me of 2017 and 2021 drafts with all the quarterbacks, but only a couple from each were any good. Yeah, I mean, there might be 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round, and I guarantee 3 are going to bust. That's how it usually goes. So it matters which ones. Like I'd be pretty shocked if Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels bust, but like Drake May has a high ceiling, but he has a low floor too. I think you would agree that McCarthy is being pushed too hard. I think he's going to be overdrafted. Bo Nix, he's the one who really feels like Ponder or Gabbert. Like I think he's a second round prospect, and I think Denver is going to reach for him, and we'll see what happens. But I do like Michael Penix. What bothers me about him is the injury history. I just worry about him staying healthy, but you never know; things could turn around. But I think at least 2 are definitely going to bust, maybe 3.
Yeah, we've talked about this at length. I like Michael Penix a lot, so I don't think he'll bust, but he's also the type of guy that if he lands in a bad situation, like say the Giants somehow drafted him, I mean, that would be catastrophic for him because of the injury history, and he'd be behind an offensive line that can hardly block outside of Andrew Thomas. So, a lot of it will depend on the situation. But yeah, I think McCarthy is probably going to be overdrafted. I think he still has a high enough floor, though, that he probably sticks around as a backup if he's not a starter. But if he goes top 10 and becomes a backup, he's going to be a bust. And then, yeah, Bo Nix scares me too. There's a lot of smoke around him to Denver, and we'll get to that later. But I think that's going to be a difference in pick that we'll have that I will probably change because you're probably right.
Yeah. Speaking of Drake May, I have him going 3rd to the Patriots. This sounds like it's going to come down to May versus McCarthy, because I think the Redskins are going to take Daniels. However, Charlie reported that the Patriots love Daniels. So this is Daniels' floor. I don't count on him falling to 4 and Minnesota trading up for him. So I'm leaning May over McCarthy right now. It could be different down the stretch. And I assume Charlie's going to give us some more info now that info is available with Bill Belichick's gone. So the stuff's starting to leak out. It's just nice. So I'm thinking May goes here. You're from that area. Are you hearing anything else?
No, it seems like everyone's gearing up for May to be the pick here. Maybe it'll be McCarthy. I know he's got growing buzz, but that seems more like a smokescreen possibility. And I totally agree with Charlie. I think Daniels is the guy they would love to get, but they're probably not going to be able to get him. But I think they're going to look at McCarthy versus Drake May, and I think they're going to come to the conclusion of, hey, Drake May has more upside than JJ McCarthy, and just a cannon of an arm. And I just think his ceiling's higher. And I think they'll look at the infrastructure they have in place and say, because we have Jacoby Brissett and we don't necessarily need to play May at all this year, we can kind of take our time developing him. And then, he'll probably play at some point this year, but if he's not ready week 1, there's not going to be like this immense pressure to get him on the field, which I think ultimately was a hindrance for Mac Jones. Like, he looked pro ready under McDaniels in his first season, but it was obvious once McDaniels was gone, he had more development to do. And I think that kind of got fouled up. So I think they'll look at May's ceiling, they'll look at their situation and say, yeah, he should be our guy.
Yeah, it makes sense. Stu saying Penix had a great offensive line at Washington. That's true, but he didn't have that at Indiana so much, and he still played well in Indiana. So I'm not worried about Penix, especially after seeing all that stuff in his apartment or whatever, like in his room about him having all the plays there. That would definitely make me happy if I were a head coach, just like wanting this guy on my team. It's like, if he busts, it's not gonna be because he's slacking off, like like Johnny Manziel or Blake Bortles or Jamarcus Russell, like famously not watching film. Like this guy's gonna be doing everything. Like he's not gonna be doing anything except watching film, basically. So
yeah. No, Michael Penix, I would run through a wall for that guy's work ethic. I get that there are other concerns. You want better consistency, better accuracy overall, but he can throw the deep ball just about as well as anyone in this class. He's going to be good if he's in the right circumstance and if he can stay healthy. A lot of ifs, but the ceiling is there.
Mm-hmm. All right, so number 4, I don't like to project trades in my mock drafts because like picking the players is tough enough to begin with, and like projecting trades is very difficult. However, we know Minnesota is going to trade up. They acquired Houston's pick in order to do it. And the only question is like with whom do they trade up? And we know that Arizona wants to trade down too because Mike Jurecki said it. Jurecki is the most plugged in team reporter in the business, and Jurecki said that the Cardinals love Malik Neighbors more than Marvin Harrison Jr. However, the Cardinals really want to trade down. And so what I think could happen is the Cardinals trading down from 4 to 11, like I have here, and then maybe moving up again, like moving from 11 to 6 or 7 and getting Neighbors or even Harrison, or at the very least, like maybe a Dunze from 11 to 9 or something like that. So I think Arizona wants a receiver, but they want to trade down more. They want more draft capital. So I think this is a perfect match. Like one team wants to move up, one team wants to move down. So I have the Vikings going from 11 to 4 to get JJ McCarthy. I think this is either McCarthy or May. Like I said, I think Daniels' floor we know is 3, so it's not going to be him. So unless the Vikings love Penix out of nowhere, but like I guess it could be him. But I think it's going to be McCarthy. Do you have Minnesota trading up at any point in your mock?
I don't. I didn't project any trades in this mock, though. I could totally see them doing it. That information about Arizona is interesting because I do have them staying put and taking Marvin Harrison just because he's the consensus number 1 receiver prospect. And, he's viewed as a pretty safe overall player. And I know Malik Neighbors is also viewed in a very high light, and there are a lot of teams that like him. And if Mike Jurecki is reporting that the Cardinals like Neighbors more, they're probably going to go after Neighbors. But I'm keeping Harrison Jr. penciled in here for now, but I 100% agree that this is a hot spot for trading. And I think it's possible, too. You could see the Cardinals did this last year. They traded down and then traded back up. Is their general manager Monty Austinfort? Is that right? Yeah. Monty Austinfort might be happy to take a similar approach, be like, hey, we can pick up some extra assets and then move back up to be sure we still get a blue chip receiver because I mean, if the Giants are looking at what's on the board, they might be excited about Malik Neighbors. But if they can pick up some extra picks and say, oh, we have a shot at Roma Dunze and getting an elite offensive lineman later on, they might be willing to do that. So I think there's enough spots where they could consider trading back up. But all that's to say I have Marvin Harrison Jr. penciled in here right now, but that might change.
Okay. Alex saying, so you're not worried Cliff is going to get another quarterback that's more interested in Call of Duty than watching film. I don't, is that true? I haven't heard that about Daniels.
I think that's a slight at Kyler Murray. I think Cliff will probably end up with a quarterback who's a hard worker. I think Daniels, I haven't heard anything about his work ethic.
Yeah, I haven't heard about the Call of Duty thing with Daniels. I mean, you could be right, Alex. I just haven't heard it, but well, we'll see. I mean, you could like Call of Duty and like still be like heavily invested in watching film. It's just everyone needs some downtime here and there. It's just depending on what you want to do. Some guys like to go out and party. Some guys just want to like lay back and play some video games. Like I was always. For the most part, I was always the latter until my Penn State days, and that you can read about in my books. Let's just say that. The boss saying, "How come Charlie doesn't have them taking neighbors?" The Cardinals. We haven't compared notes yet, Charlie and I. I don't know if he knew that stuff about Jarecki. So what Charlie and I usually do is like we'll have some calls with each other, and like we'll compare notes and what I've heard and what he's heard. And 95% of it's Charlie, what's Charlie's heard because he talks to everyone. But I have a couple of sources, here and there, not nearly as many as Charlie. So I can tell Charlie a couple of things, and then Charlie can tell me like a billion things. And then we'll try to get the most accurate mock draft. That's usually what we do. John saying, what if the Cardinals are unable to find a trade partner to move up and they miss out on the top 3 receivers? That would be so Cardinals. So like, I don't think that's going to be an issue because teams like it feels like most teams love to move down. And like the problem there is that they just can't find a trade partner. Like case in point, last year with the Jets wanted a tackle or Jahmyr Gibbs, and they missed out on all of them at number 15. And like they were dying to trade down. Like if you remember that draft or just rewatch it, like they let the time go down to like the final minute because they were calling teams nonstop to trade down, and they just couldn't do it. No one wanted to move up. So, but like teams always want to move down, like not always, like the Redskins, like they're not moving down because like they can get their quarterback. But for the most part, teams want to just acquire draft capital, but they just can't find trading partners. But if there's someone trading up, like it's going to happen. Like I don't know with whom. It could be the Chargers. I know the Chargers want to trade down. That's been out there. I can see the Giants, if they don't take a quarterback, the Giants can certainly trade down. The Titans, they can still get their tackle at 11. The Falcons, they could probably get Dallas Turner at 11. Or maybe the Bears take him, but like the Bears are certainly they can certainly trade down. So I feels like every team from 5 to 9 could trade down. I don't think the Jets would. I think the Jets well, we'll talk about it in a second, but I think the Jets stay put at 10. But I think that I think as long as the team wants to move up, like they'll be able to do it for the most part.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And even if they're not able to, if they're moving down to 11 in this circumstance, yeah, they might miss out on one of the top receivers, but this is a deep receiver class, and they could probably get a good one at 27. And it's a great offensive line class. So if they miss out on those top receivers, odds are one of the top tackles is going to still be on the board. So they'll be able to take him instead. And I know that they have Paris Johnson Jr. on the roster as one of their future tackles, but I think they got rid of DJ Humphries this offseason. They signed Jonah Williams, but you can always you can shift things around on the offensive line as needed. So they might get a guy like Talise Fuaga who can play tackle or be an elite guard. And I know that's not a sexy thing to do, but the Titans did it with Peter Skoronski, and he's been great at left guard for them when healthy.
Yeah, the Cardinals want a guard. So they can take Fuaga, they take Fatanu. Both make sense. Latham can make sense too. He can play guard. We saw with the Redskins taking Brandon Sheriff at number 5 overall. They took a guard that high. So at 11, like they could certainly take a guard there. So I think the Cardinals are at a good spot, even if they can't trade up. And there's like you said, there's so many good receivers. You can get one at 23 if they get that pick, or 27, or atop the second round. Like they're going to have a lot of chances to get a good receiver. John saying Jane Daniels is of such high character, he stops for the red lights on Grand Theft Auto. I always when I play Grand Theft Auto, like this is back, I haven't played that in a long time, but I would always have like before running amok, I would always like play a run through of just like being a nice guy just in the game, and like it would get boring, but like I was like I wonder how this would play out if I just don't steal anything or anything. So I'd always go down that route too, just to see how the game would play. But then I'd go nuts. John says the Jets swore Will McDonald was their pick all along. That's 100% false. The Jets, I mean, they're going to lie through their teeth, but that's wrong. And if you want evidence, look at both Charlie and my mock draft from 2022. We got every single Jets pick correct. Like, so Charlie has info from the Jets, and they gave us the info that they wanted to tackle or Jahmyr Gibbs. Will McDonald was a second round target for them. But he was the top guy they had left because they didn't have any first round guys left. So that's what happened there. So if the Jets said that, that's completely false, but I understand why they're lying,
Yeah, I always do love when that happens. And the teams are like, "Oh yeah, this was our plan all along." It's like, well, no, it wasn't. But you're also not going to come out and say like, "We did not want Will McDonald this early." Like,
Right.
imagine doing that. He'd be like, "What the hell? Then why am I here?" So
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know. It's like almost dating someone. Like you like this girl or a couple girls, and like they all shoot you down, and then you take like someone else to the prom, and you're like, I don't really want to take you, but like, it's that sort of deal. Like you're never going to do that. Back saying Chiefs did the same thing in 2018. They traded up to get Josh Jackson, but the Packers sniped them. Then they could claim they wanted Breland Speaks the whole time. And then he says, I suspect they did it again in 2020 with Edwards Hilaire after Jeff Gladney got taken. Yeah, I remember they wanted Gladney. Teams that happens to teams all the time, and they're always going to back their guy. Like they don't want to sound like dicks or anything like that. So you can understand it. John says Bills wanted McDuffie, but the Chiefs jumped them. Ended up with Kyer Elam. Yeah, that was another one. There's so many times that a team wants a guy and it's one pick away. Remember George Karlaftis, the Bengals? Like we almost got that pick correct. The Bengals wanted Karlaftis so badly, and the Chiefs got him one pick ahead. So like that was another situation last year. The Saints wanted Miles Murphy. They ended up going with Brian Brisset instead. So it happens more than you think. And like that also tends to happen in fantasy drafts too. Like how many times? Like I can't think of like how many times over the years, and I've been playing fantasy since like 1994, 1995. Like there's been so many times where I wanted a guy, and it's like one pick before me. It just goes off the board. It's like come on, like it happens all the time.
oh yeah, it's always how it happens because you know who's going to be in the range for all this stuff, and if they're going to go ahead of you, it's usually a one or two picks at most.
Yep. Cowboys won a Kincaid. Yeah, there's so many examples of it. All right, so let's get to pick number 5. So you have Harrison off the board. I'm going to have the Chargers picking Marvin Harrison Jr. here. So I've been like kind of back and forth on this one. There's some speculation that the Chargers want to tackle. Like Jim Harbaugh said, he wants to really beef up the offensive line. So it could be Joe Alt, sure. But like if you're going to take a tackle, it's going to be a right tackle, number 5. Seems kind of weird. And I was thinking like between Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors, who would I have the Chargers taking? And I don't know if I'm Jim Harbaugh, I watch Marvin Harrison Jr. on the other team. And like, I know, like, obviously Michigan won the championship, but like, if I'm Harbaugh, I'm like, man, could you imagine our team with Marvin Harrison Jr. on top of the talent that we had? Like, he must have been like watching this guy with envy. And Harrison caught five passes for 118 yards in the touchdown in that Michigan Ohio State game. So Harbaugh's had a good look at this guy for a couple of years. So that like I feel like he would go with Harrison over Neighbors, but that's just a guess. I know Neighbors is looking for a home for houses in LA, but I feel like most prospects would do that. But I'm leaning toward Harrison here. Who do you have going to the Chargers?
Yeah, so with Harrison off the board in my mock, I do have them going Neighbors. I've heard the same offensive line thing that you've heard, but yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think Joe Alt would be a great pick here, and that would really shore up the right side of their line, but I'm not sure that I buy that as the move that they would make, especially, Michigan, the Michigan program has a lot of offensive linemen in this draft, so I'm kind of thinking Harbaugh might just be like, I'm going to take my best Michigan players on the offensive line in the middle rounds of the draft, and that will help shore things up. Because they have a lot of pro-ready prospects there. They could take Joe Alt, play him at left tackle, and move Slater inside, but I don't see the point in that because Slater's been good at left tackle. So all that's to say, Neighbors seems like the best option among the guys left on the board for me. You'd provide them with an electric playmaker. That would also take a lot of pressure off of Quentin Johnston and would allow you to have 3 really good deep threat receivers because Joshua Palmer can get downfield as well. So I think having like 2 guys and then letting Quentin Johnston be like the 3rd receiver almost and be like, while you figure this out, here, do this, and Justin Herbert will make things work. But the idea of pairing Justin Herbert with Malik Neighbors and that speed, that's just too enticing to pass on for me in this circumstance. But if Marvin Harrison was on the board, I think it becomes interesting because, like I said, you already have a couple field stretchers for the Chargers. So if you get that like route technician who can also beat you deep, I think you'd probably lean that way if he's still on the board.
Yeah, I mean, based on Quentin Johnston's play last year, maybe the third receiver is Darius Davis at this point.
That's true.
He was so bad. I can't believe how bad he was. It's like, okay, I understand Joshua Palmer outplaying him, but it was like every receiver was outplaying Quentin Johnston. He was so terrible. He's not locked in to be a bust, but he certainly looked like one last year. Bagger says, "I'll never forgive the Cardinals that they let Harrison slip to 5." I go with Jarecki. Jarecki said the Neighbors is their guy. So plus they want to move down. So we could get receivers at 5 and 6 instead of 4 and 5. And that's what I have here. The Giants getting Malik Neighbors. So it was 10 years ago that they drafted another LSU receiver. Now they get a new one, and they really need a receiver. They have nothing at the position. It's just like Darius Slayton is their top guy. Maybe Jalen Hyatt does something in the second year, but they need a number one guy. Daniel Jones hasn't had that. And you finally give that to him. And we can finally see if Daniel Jones can be a competent quarterback. He was pretty good in 2022, granted, but like last year, his production slipped. I know a lot of that was his bad receivers and horrible offensive line play, but like he just wasn't good himself. But giving him someone like Neighbors actually gives him a chance. So I think the Giants would be thrilled to get one of Neighbors or Harrison at 6.
Yeah, they don't get that guy, either of those guys in my version, but they do go receivers. So we start with 3 quarterbacks, then 3 receivers in my mock. They go Rome Odunze here. I know there are some separation concerns, but I generally think that Odunze will find a way to make plays at the next level. I've seen comparisons of him to like Devontae Adams, and I think that's probably like maybe he won't become Adams, but I know there were some separation concerns with Adams when he was coming out of college. So I could see the same thing being applied to Odunze and him just finding a way to kind of overcome that and become a true number one receiver. And he would just, as you said, be an upgrade over what the Giants have. And yeah, the Giants could take a tackle here, but they already have a recent first round pick invested in Evan Neal. So I think if they're going to get competition for him, they'll look for it on day 2 and maybe find someone who he can play guard or maybe can kick Neal into guard to shore up the rest of that offensive line. But yeah, Odunze is going to be my guy here at 6.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. But if I think if Joe Alt is available at 7, I think Tennessee definitely hands in the card for him. It just makes so much sense. They don't have a left tackle. It's the best left tackle of the class. It just seems like such a great fit. Now they could trade down. Maybe this is where Arizona moves up, but I don't know. I feel like if Alt's on the board, it just makes so much sense for them.
Yeah, this feels like the pick Rand Carthon would make. I mean, if you look at what he's done to this team, he's made a lot of signings. He added some skill position guys with Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley, but a lot of the money he spent has been on defense, upgrading the secondary, and then adding guys to the trenches. So I think that they would go with the tackle here. And you kick Nicholas Petit Frere over to right tackle to compete with Dylan Radins, and then all of a sudden both sides of your line look a lot better. You have competition, good swing tackle. Feels like a no-brainer for them unless they want to trade down.
Mm-hmm. G-Chuck asking, do you guys see Rashawn Slater having a bounce-back season for the Chargers? He had a bad injury in 2022 and seemed to be just average in 2023. I thought he was pretty good last year. I didn't think he was just average. Now, maybe he wasn't like all-pro material, but I thought he had a good year. Now, 2022, he missed most of it. But now he's going to be another year removed from his injury, and he's still young. How old is he exactly? I think he's like 25. So, there's no reason to think that he'll be worse this year than he was last year. So, he could only get better, I think. And yeah, so I think he'll bounce back, but I don't think he had just an average season.
Yeah, I think he was good last year, especially considering I can't remember if he had a torn bicep or a torn pec, but either way, he had an injury that kind of takes a lot out of you. Like it's a long-term sideline thing, and you have to rebuild strength, which is particularly important for him because he's got less length and smaller arms than the average offensive tackle. So I think, if anything, that may have weakened him a bit there. But like you said, he'll bounce back this year, be stronger because that injury is more healed. But even if he wasn't at full strength last year, I still thought he was good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought so too. Number 8, the Falcons drafting Dallas Turner, the first defensive player off the board. I think this makes a lot of sense for the Falcons. They haven't had a great edge rusher in a long time. I guess going back to the year that they went to the Super Bowl, when they had some decent players there, but now they finally get to have that a great edge rushing presence with Dallas Turner, and that kind of like fills their defense, completes their defense, because they made a lot of upgrades last year, but they didn't get the elite edge rusher that they needed. But yeah, here with Dallas Turner to complement Kirk Cousins, I think that this is a great pick for the Falcons. What do you have here?
I also have Dallas Turner. This is one that I don't want to say lock it in because they could trade down, but I'm tempted to just lock this one in and say this is who the Falcons are taking, because Turner fits the mold of what Terry Fontenot has looked for in his prospects too. I mean, yeah, they've all been skilled position players on offense: Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, but they all have one thing in common: they have excellent elite athletic ability, and generally good size. And I know Turner's not like big for an edge rusher, but boy, could he move and could he run at the combine. And I think that shows up on tape. So I think Fontenot's going to look at that and say, adding that type of speed to our defense after all the speed and talent we've added on offense, that's the move we need to make. So if he's on the board, I'd be surprised if he wasn't the pick, unless someone like Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors just fell into their lap and they were like, well, we can't pass on these guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I'd be pretty shocked if one of those receivers falls to them, but I actually did see a mock draft today with Malik Neighbors falling to 11. I'm like, that's not going to happen, but I don't know. I guess crazier things have happened. Maybe there's like a Bongate situation that transpires, but I'd be shocked to see that happen. But yeah, I mean, if Neighbors or Harrison were there, I think they'd consider them as well. Number 9, the Bears going Jared Verse. So this is like an asterisk here. This is one of the areas I think the Cardinals can move up. So I don't have it in my mock draft because I don't want to like confuse too many people. But this is kind of like a projected trade where I have Arizona moving up for Roma Dunze, and then the Bears getting Jared Verse at 11. I think Verse a little too rich at 9. But I didn't know what to mock to the Bears otherwise if they move down, which I think they would want to do. I've heard that they're fielding offers for number 9 because they don't have a second round pick, so they just want more resources, which makes sense. But they obviously have Montez Sweat, who's great for them last year, but they don't have another edge rusher of that caliber. And getting Jared Verse, I think, would do wonders for the defense. So this is basically not at 11, but Bears at number 9 getting Jared Verse. Who do you have the Bears taking?
I actually also have them taking Jared Verse.
Nice.
I just kind of penciled this one. It is a tough spot for them. I think they would move down. They could move down considerably too, and just maybe pick up another first round pick next year, so they can have multiple first round picks for yet another year. I think that would make some sense for them, because there are going to be teams that might want to consider moving up for. If Roma Dunze is still on the board, I know he's not in my mock, but a team like the Bills could say, hey, we got to replace Stephon Diggs. Let's take a swing at this type of guy. And I think the Bears would be willing to move down fairly considerably and just pick up some of that extra draft capital. But I think Verse, if not, seems like a safe bet to be a productive pro. I think he had 9 sacks back-to-back years at Florida State, his 2 years there, and was really the part of the heart and soul of that great Seminoles defense. So I think pairing him with Montez Sweat would be really good. I just don't know if the Bears are going to be picking this high. And if they do, they might, I think Verse is probably more of a guy I would say would go around 15, maybe within the top 15. But, if they have to reach for someone, I think he'd be the guy here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels like 15 is about right. But if they move down from 9 to 11, pick up another pick, then you kind of like that a little bit more. Sandra's saying McDonald having been the plan all along, will be even worse than the Jets taking him as a panic pick. Why are the Jets telling the obvious lie? Well, there are a lot of people who will believe obvious lies. We've seen that in all facets of life. But yeah, I mean, if like you said, like, what's the alternative? Are they gonna be like, oh, we didn't want this guy, so it just makes sense for them to say that they like them all along, and people are going to slurp it up and they're going to believe it, and whatever. It's not a huge deal. But they did panic, and they also don't want to say that they panicked too. It just makes them look bad.
Yeah. It makes them look bad. And again, you don't want to antagonize the player you just bet the 15th pick on, because if they're like, we didn't want him this high, Will McDonald's probably like, well, do I really want to be here then? Like, he won't have a choice, obviously, but when it comes to his second contract, if he's good, he might be like, look, you guys didn't want me, so I want out now.
Right.
So it just would undermine your relationship with the player far too much. And, people in league circles are going to know what happened. So that's all that really matters.
Exactly. Yeah. Bagley at this point, they loved him so much they waited 9.5 minutes to take him. Exactly. Yeah. So Papa Smurf says Nicolas Cage is a better actor than Russell Crowe. Fun fact: my sister is like the biggest Nicolas Cage fan ever. Whenever I go to Las Vegas, she asks me to she's like, "Hey, can you get Nicolas Cage's autograph for me or something or something like that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna stalk this guy." Like, "Hey, my sister wants your autograph." You know, I don't know what this is a reference to, but I think that I think Nicolas Cage is pretty good. I don't know. I think he gets a bad rap, but I know he's a good actor.
I like Nick Cage. He's been in a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Bagley saying even that explanation doesn't make sense. Surely even McDonald himself isn't gullible enough to believe that. I think I feel like NFL players have such high egos that they just want to hear that they're wanted, and he's gonna believe it, So he just the thing he doesn't want to hear is that, oh, we don't want you, that's gonna be disrespectful to him. But if he's told something, I think he'll talk himself into believing it.
Well,
It's my guess.
Think about it like this. How many players have you heard say, I think I'm the best player at my position, or I think I'm the best player in the NFL, who are very clearly not even close to the best players in the NFL? That's how I would think about it.
Yeah, agreed. Kevin, $10 super chat. Thanks so much, Kevin. Just really appreciate you with all this help. This is now 20x what we would have gotten for a normal show. Thank you both for the quality NFL content. Thank you so much for watching all the time, Kevin. Just again, this is so great. We're really grateful for your contributions. So speaking of 10, we're at pick number 10. The Jets going with Brock Bowers. So I think the Jets, it would make sense for them to trade down if all the offensive playmakers aren't available. If Neighbors, Harrison Jr., Odunze, and Bowers and Joe Alt, if they're somehow all off the board, which seems like impossible, then they could trade down because they don't have a second round pick. But I think they stay put because Aaron Rodgers needs another playmaker. And I know they signed Mike Williams, but he's coming off a torn ACL. So all they have right now at receiver / tight end is Garrett Wilson. That's it. So Brock Bowers, getting him, I think, is a huge deal for Rodgers. Who do you have the Jets taking at 10?
I also have Brock Bowers here. I promise this draft will get more exciting in a few picks, but obviously the top 10 have a lot of similarities because there isn't as much variability up there. But yeah, you look at Tyler Conklin as a fine starting tight end, decent weapon. He's been a good receiver at times, but you really want to just trick out this offense for Aaron Rodgers if you're going to go for it. And I think we're a tackle at this point. They could consider Talise Fuaga here and find a way to play him or move him to guard or something, or just trade him as a super sub this year and then figure out next year when Tyron Smith is gone if he can play left tackle. But I think they're more likely to get a lot out of Bowers this year, which feels like their biggest Super Bowl window at this point if Rodgers stays healthy. So I think going with Bowers makes a lot of sense. And he would instantly be probably the number 2 target on that team behind Garrett Wilson. And if Mike Williams can stay healthy, which we say every year and never happens, but if he can finally do it, all of a sudden you've got a pretty good looking receiving core.
Yeah, I like Kenny's prediction of Mike Williams having 2 great quarters in 2024 and both of them being in different games. So I can see that. By the way, I saw the stat today. So if you don't know it, it's totally fair. But I didn't know it before I saw it. Maybe you will. How many players have how many first round picks have caught touchdowns from Aaron Rodgers throughout Aaron Rodgers' career? And as a bonus, who are they?
Okay. I know one of them. I know Mercedes Lewis. I think that's the only one.
You're totally right. You're so good. Good job.
I know too much about Mercedes Lewis. He was my fantasy tight end back when he was on the Jaguars early in his career. So I have a lot of good memories of the David Garrard Jaguars just jammed in my head. But yeah, no, I love that trivia though, because no one guesses that. No one remembers that Mercedes Lewis was a first round pick because he became this great blocking tight end. Right. But early in his career, he was known as a receiver. It's so weird.
It is, yeah. He's been playing forever too. You mentioned David Garrard, like that feels like an eon ago that he played with him. So, yeah, it's funny that's crazy. It's the only first round pick to ever to catch a touchdown pass from Rodgers, and well, I imagine we'll have Bowers or Odunze at number 2. So that's it's pretty wild. John asking what's Bowers' vaccination status. I assume that's because of Woody Johnson. Bowers definitely vaxxed. He's immunized. Ben Sinnott, major sleeper. I've heard some people like him as well. Eric says I have high expectations the second time in 30 plus years of being a Jets fan. The first time was last season, less than roughly 4 plays. Yeah, that was a rough scene. There's so much hype for the Jets. They even won that game against Buffalo, but things fell apart quickly after that. But yeah, if you're a Jets fan, you have to feel optimistic, but I feel like cautiously so because it feels like there's a lot of landmines here with the Jets. Like you have Aaron Rodgers, who's now in his 40s. You have Mike Williams coming up to torn ACL. You have Tyron Smith, who's always hurt. Brees Hall, not too long ago, he had a torn ACL. Offensive line always has injuries. Elijah Vera Tucker can't stay healthy. Like, I'm sorry for making you feel bad, Eric. But like, I think that if everything goes right, you could win the Super Bowl this year. However, it feels like there's so much that could go wrong too. So it's pretty tough. But I wish you the best though, because you suffered for so long.
At least we won't have to see the Jets start Tim Boyle again. Easiest bet of my life, fading Tim Boyle.
That was something else. That Black Friday game, he was so bad. Love to eat says David Garrard. That's sorry, aren't there? Oh yeah, David Garrard was pretty good. Because he came out of nowhere. He actually unseated Byron Leftwich as the first round pick. Predictions for Rice punishment: jail, NFL suspension. I think he'll be suspended 6 games. I don't know if he's spent time in jail. I know he's 115 and then causing a car accident. I think he'll get community service and 6 game suspension. But what do you think?
Yeah, the way the NFL personal conduct policy is written is probably that it will be a 6-game suspension. It will be the max that they can do. Again, it could be longer if the NFL reaches some sort of agreement with Rice that he has to sit out half the season or something. But if the two go head to head, kind of, Rice has the policy in his back pocket and can say, it says 6 games, guys, and no other additional criteria for that, or the criteria is too vague, and the NFL always loses that argument. So I think that's probably what Rice is looking at this point.
Yeah, and the NFL always drags their feet too, and I feel like the suspension is going to come at the end of the year, just randomly. Like he's going to play week 1. We're going to be like, why is he playing week 1? Like, why don't they just suspend him now? They always take forever to do this. I don't know why. All right, so you have Minnesota here. This is going to be our only team difference. No, actually 23. But yeah, I have the Arizona taking Rome Odunze, like I said, moving up to 9 theoretically. Who do you have the Vikings taking here?
I actually have JJ McCarthy making it to this point, and I think that if McCarthy could pick his landing spot among these teams, he should be picking Minnesota, because I think that's the best chance for him to reach his ceiling as an NFL player, because that's my one where I think he has a high floor. I think he's probably like Alex Smith type player in all reality. He has better arm strength and mobility than Smith, so higher ceiling. But I think at his floor, he's probably like, oh yeah, you can be a low end starter who could maybe get to high end and then be sort of high end backup material late in his career. But Kevin O'Connell can get the most out of him, and he'd be in an offense with so many receiving weapons: Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones. Like, that Vikings offense with JJ McCarthy would be built kind of for him to be able to distribute the ball and not have to worry too much about carrying the team. So I think that's his best landing spot. And so I'm kind of hoping he goes to the Vikings for his sake. And I think they'd be happy to get him at 11. And like you said, they're probably going to trade up if they're going to get him.
Yeah, I think so. Let's see, Eric says if he has no prior, slap on the wrist, legally, probation. Yeah, I don't think he's going to spend time in jail, like at probation or community service or something. John says that Rice didn't do anything major like Calvin Ridley did. Loti says Kansas City fan, 10-game suspension. There have been so many of these racing incidents. Have to make an example. I think it'll be 6, but if they want to make an example, they could do it, I suppose. I just think it'll be 6. It's gonna be tough to go above that barrier, like Jacob said. And then why is JJ McCarthy going this high when Penix is so much better? It's a great question. I don't know. I mean, Penix is 24 and has an injury history. If Penix were 21 and didn't have the injury history, I feel like he'd be in the mix for top 3. I don't know if he'd be second or third, but I think he'd be up there. Problem is he's 24 and has an injury history, so it's going to keep him down.
Yeah, and McCarthy's I think 21, and he has all the intangible. Not that Penix doesn't have these things, but McCarthy has he's a winner. He won the national championship, so he has that in his back pocket in addition to these tools. So I think Penix looks like a guy I'm comfortable with saying has a pretty high floor too. I think his ceiling is probably higher than McCarthy's, but I think you're dead on that it's the age and the injuries that are kind of the tiebreaker here. And McCarthy, because he was in that run heavy offense, I think coaches are saying well, we don't know what he could be in a more pass heavy offense. It's that sort of thing. It's like, will he succeed in the pass or more of a pass heavy offense, or was it a run heavy offense because he couldn't succeed as a guy who would have to carry the team? No. And I think we'll find that out.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it because I don't know. We'll see. I mean, there are a lot of polarizing opinions on these quarterbacks. Bagley says maybe Rice can time it perfectly where he misses 6 games against really crappy teams. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. The schedule comes out in about a month, less than a month, so we'll know that. Mike says Penix wasn't better in the college playoff game. Well, I mean, they just handed the ball off to the running backs. I don't know, like if you switch quarterbacks, I feel like you get the same result. So I don't think. I don't know. Bagley says, I honestly feel like Penix's draft stock would be higher if he lost in the semifinal. Michigan really exposed them. What do you think about this, Jacob? I mean, it was a tough matchup for sure. Michigan's team was so stacked.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I don't necessarily disagree with that. If Texas had beaten Washington, I think the Michael Penix stuff would have been at oh my God, look at how good he was. His draft stock would be very high. At least from a public perception, people would be higher on him. But the game against Michigan is turned it into the polarized, oh, but he was so great against Texas. Oh, but he was so bad against Michigan. But I think Michigan's defense just made a lot of guys look bad. And did it prove that Michael Penix, when pressured, has some flaws? Sure, absolutely. But it's still just a 1-game sample size, so you can't put everything on one game. You have to go back and look at the tape for all of them. So I think his draft stock is probably right about where it should be. I'm a little higher on him than most, but the fact that he seems to be trending towards being a first-round pick and seems like a top 16 or top 20 pick, I think that's where he should probably go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. McCarthy's Mac Jones 2.0. I can see that comparison. I kind of like it. John saying, I hope the Patriots draft him then. Yeah, if you're a Bills, Jets, or Dolphins fan, I think you're rooting for the Patriots to go McCarthy because May's ceiling is super high. And then Mike says, Bagley, if you want Rice to miss 6 games against crappy teams, just sit out the other AFC West teams. It's true. And then isn't that what we said about Mahomes? Yeah, I mean, yeah, Mahomes' ceiling was so high. He was raw coming in, but Andy Reid did amazing work with him. I remember Mahomes ahead of the draft, he was saying that hey, you have to work on this and this and this. He had a laundry list of things he said he needed to work on, and obviously it worked out. All right, let's move on. Denver at number 12. Kind of curious about what you have here. I have the Denver taking Bo Nix. In fact, I'm hearing that they might trade up for Bo Nix, and I think that would be such a disaster. I think even staying with 12 would be horrible. We had Ben Wassley on last week, and he said that in his mock, he had Denver moving down for Bo Nix. And if they did that, I'd be okay with it because, like I said, I think Bo Nix belongs in the second round. But Denver is so desperate for a quarterback. I feel like they make this move. What do you think?
I have them going with Michael Penix here. That goes against what the odds and experts are saying. I know there's way more Denver wants Bo Nix smoke, so that's probably the right side. My logic on that would be that I think Michael Penix is the better player with the higher ceiling. I think Bo Nix has a fairly high floor, but he's almost the guy that strikes me as kind of he's drawn Drew Brees comparisons, but I'm more I think you're more of a Mac Jones type where in the right situation you could be good, but if nothing else works out, it's going to be problematic for you. So I don't love the idea of Denver going Bo Nix. Michael Penix, at least you would have the ability to throw the ball downfield, and Cortland Sutton there. Maybe they could get a speed receiver. So I'm just hoping that Sean Payton kind of could see like, oh, Michael Penix could run a really effective offense here. But I think if we're talking scheme fit, Bo Nix probably does.
Are you there or am I offline? I think Jacob stopped. Jacob lost internet connection, or I did. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. But he was saying, I'm still getting comments in here. I think Jacob's internet might be down. Denon says Raiders beat guy pretty strong on OL CB in the first round. Pretty much get there. Okay, so I'm good. Okay, yeah. Jacob's offline for a second. So okay, there he goes.
Okay, I was just gonna text you. Yeah, my internet randomly blipped, but yeah, I just have Penix. We'll see. I think Nix is probably more likely, but I wanted to see what would happen if I put Penix here. Would Nix go anywhere else?
Okay. Well, I look forward to hearing where else you could go. Fantasy First Down says, I stand by no Nix at 12. They need more draft capital. Yeah. This has been hey Ben, how are you? Yeah, so I think it'll be a huge mistake. But Ben, I heard that they might trade up for him though. From a source that's been reliable. Like they're talking about moving up for him. So I don't know. I think there's some people, from what I heard, I think Denver. I don't know how dated this information is, but like Denver really likes Laiatu Latu. Now they need an edge rusher. Obviously, they lost so many of those recently, but I know that some people in that organization like him. However, Sean Payton is apparently really pushing for Nix. So we'll see. Godspeed, Denver.
Oh God, if they take Bo Nix that early, I mean, he could pan out, but I just don't think there's any ceiling. He's just going to be all right at best.
Yeah. Yeah, that is totally insane. Yeah. I for the sake of Denver fans, I hope. And yeah, you said I was going to make a joke. You said that that Bo Nix fits Denver's scheme perfectly. I would be like, yeah, they have a lot of crappy quarterbacks in that scheme, like Russell Wilson, Jarrett Stidham. The Bo Nix is next. So I don't know what they're doing. I think they're the worst team in the NFL. We'll see. I don't know. Teams have surprised me in the past, but I'd be shocked if they're competitive this year. Warco says neighbors to the Cardinals are a riot. Well, how would you feel about a trade down, Warco? 4-11, you get to pick up a 23 and a first round pick next year. So I think that'd be pretty sweet. I know you miss out on neighbors, but I think I'd rather have the first round pick next year. Because Arizona's going to. They may need a quarterback next year. And so you're going to spend one pick on a quarterback and then you can get a stud elsewhere. I think that's a good deal. Okay, so I was reading this. Degeneron says Raiders beat guy pretty strong on offensive line, quarterback first round. Pretty much get their pick of offensive line. Would be surprised if quarterback round one. Do you know who the beat guy is, Degeneron? Because I want to see how accurate he's been in the past. It's something we keep track of on the site, like reporter accuracy. So I've been like, we'll get to the Raiders pick in a second. I might as well do it now, and then I'll read some other comments later. I had the Raiders taking Michael Penix Jr. So from what I heard, this is from Tony Pauline. It's not one of our sources. Tony's been one of the most accurate guys too. Tony said that Antonio Pierce is really pushing for a quarterback. In fact, Pierce wants to trade up for a quarterback. However, Tom Telesco, the GM, wants to take an offensive lineman. So we'll see. The Raiders wanted Paris Johnson last year, so it makes sense for them to go tackle. But I don't know. We'll see if Pierce gets his way, because I don't know. So we'll see. What do you think the Raiders are going to do at 13?
If Michael Penix Jr. was on the board in this mock draft, I would probably have the Raiders take him. That is where I think I'm at. I don't think they would take Bo Nix at this point. I think that Tom Telesco is smart enough to say to Antonio Pierce, like, look, if that were the case, he might say we could trade back up into the end of the first round and still get Bo Nix. So this is all like hypothetical scenarios I'm running through here. But if they don't go quarterback here, I do have them going offensive line. I have J.C. Latham from Alabama as the best offensive lineman on the board. Just his size, I think he's 6'6", 354 pounds or something like that. He might even be 364 at the combine, but he has size and strength, so he could play right tackle, be a great bookend for Colton Miller. And, if he doesn't work out as a tackle, you can kick him inside to guard. The only thing that could hold the Raiders back from doing this is that they took Alex Leatherwood in this very similar plug and play right tackle situation a few years ago, and that did not work out well. But I don't think that will prevent this from happening, especially not because Telesco is a new GM for them. So I have Latham here, but I could see why it would be Penix, and I'd actually love it if it was Penix. I think that this is a fantastic landing spot for him.
Can you remember, maybe I'm missing someone obvious. Can you remember a good Alabama tackle to come out recently? Like, we've had Evan Neal as a bust. We had Leatherwood, who's a bust. We had Jonah Williams, who played well at times, but he got hurt, and he made a bad transition to right tackle. Can you think of a good Alabama tackle? And I'm not to put you on the spot, because I can't think of one. We were talking about this last week.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't think of one. So
yeah. Not to say that Latham's gonna be bad, but there is a bad history there. Love to asking, how is Caleb Williams better than Penix? Well, I mean, it's before, like I said before, Penix is 24 and has an injury history. Like, if he were 21 and had no injury history, we'd be talking about him as potential top 3 pick, But it's just, that has to be in consideration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Eric says, Bo Nix, finished product. Dude's been in college for 12 years. Yeah. What's funny is that, like, when Bo Nix is like, people are hyping him up for the draft. And, like, obviously he's playing for Oregon here. Like, this past year, I had to make sure it was the same Bo Nix, because I was like, wait a second. Like, wasn't Bo Nix in college like 6 years ago? Like, wait, is this a different one? Because, like, I remember him playing on another team, so it is the same one.
Yeah, I watched him play against Justin Herbert when I lived in Charlotte. That's how long it's been that he's been in college. Yeah. That was literally 6 years ago.
Yeah, that's crazy. Bagley saying if the Raiders take a corner, it's probably Wiggins. Why is that? I'm kind of curious. Yeah, Nix is so long. In college so long, he got 2 PhDs, almost had tenure. Yeah, Bo Nix sucks. Yeah. Vic Tuffer, yeah, he's a pretty good reporter from my memory. I'd have to make sure, but I think he's a pretty solid reporter. Warka says, you think Minnesota deals with us, though? I saw a mock by Schrager today, and he says we deal with the Giants. Well, Schrager's pretty plugged in. I don't know, like, specifically which teams he's plugged in more so than others, but so, I mean, if the Giants can move up for a quarterback, I think that would be disastrous. I know you agree, Jacob. Like, I don't think the Giants are in a position to go for a quarterback, but if you trade 4 to 6 and get Neighbors, it's a pretty sweet deal.
If the Giants trade up from 6 to 4 and draft JJ McCarthy, it will be an absolute travesty, because they will not be able to surround him with what he needs to succeed, and he will just go the path of Daniel Jones. And, like, it's just, we know that he has talent. Like, McCarthy has untapped potential, but how are you going to tap into the potential when you don't have a good blocking scheme in front of him, and then you have no good receivers? Don't do it, Giants. Take someone in the middle rounds, for the love of your organization.
I totally agree. It's just, I have nothing else to add to that. I would just, like, they made the same mistake in 2019. They're going to do it again. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Raiders, John says Raiders will probably reach for defensive end out of habit, like they did last year. Yep. Raiders drafting Andre Smith, legend in the 40. Yeah. So I asked for something recent. But Cam Robinson, maybe. Yeah, it took him a while to get going, though. He struggled early, but he turned into a pretty good tackle. All right, so number 14, speaking of tackles, I had the Saints going with Olu Fashanu. So they wanted an edge rusher last year. Like I said, they wanted Miles Murphy. However, with Jared Verse off the board and Dallas Turner off the board, I don't know if they go Latu with his injuries. Chop Robinson feels like a little too early. So I think left tackle makes sense, because Trevor Penning has been a bust. So I think they go for Fashanu. Who do you have the Saints taking?
I have them taking Talise Fuaga. Same logic. Trevor Penning has been great. And I think they had to cut Andrus Peat this offseason, right? Or he's gone in free agency. So they have a hole at left guard now, too. So I think Fuaga gives them a little bit of versatility there. And I think he's just a rock solid, safe pick. That seems to be, to me, what the Saints have done under Mickey Loomis with addressing their offensive line. Like, Ramczyk was a plug-and-play right tackle. Eric McCoy, very safe center pick. Cesar Ruiz, I know he's only been okay, but he was kind of viewed as a player that was going to be a plug and play starter. Fasciano could be that too, but I think he has a little more development to go. And with how Penning has played and been unable to develop, I think they might look at Fuaga and say, man, that guy just looked kind of ready for either tackle or guard. So let's just get him and see where he fits in.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I could maybe be talked into that. Because I just don't know which tackle to go with here. I feel like it will be a tackle unless one of the edge rushers falls. Cassandra's saying these one game NBA playoffs are so stupid. It occurred to me today that as a result of them, one, playoff teams make the lottery, and two, 1 and 2 seeds are disadvantaged because they don't know who to prepare for until days after the 3 through 6 seeds do. Yeah, I don't know. My dad was so pissed, by the way, because the Sixers are in the in the play-in tournament. He's like, "This has never happened before. Why do they have to play to make the playoffs?" I'm like, "It's been happening for like 3 or 4 years now." He's like, "No, it never happened before." I'm like, "Yeah. Remember, Damian Lillard had a crazy game, and he's like, "Oh yeah." But he was very angry the Sixers have to play against Miami, and he's like, "What if they lose to Miami?" I'm like, "Well, then they play Chicago or Atlanta," and he's like, "What if we lose to them?" I'm like, they don't make the playoffs. And he's like, that's so stupid. And I'm like, well, if they lose to Miami and Chicago/Atlanta, like, do you think they deserve to be in the playoffs? And he's like, yeah, that's true. But it is kind of tilting that your team is the 7th seed and they need to play to get in. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm annoyed as a Boston fan because I don't know who they're going to play. So they are. It does put the 1 and 2 seeds at a disadvantage. They can at least prepare though for some of the outcomes, but you know, and also all of the teams in the East I'm somewhat scared of except the Bulls. So I'm rooting for the Bulls to get the 8th seed, but that is almost certainly not going to happen.
Yeah, I would not be scared of the Knicks. I know you don't play in the first round, but I feel like the Knicks are going to lose in the first round. I was telling my dad, I'm like, I hope the Sixers get the 7th seed because the Knicks always fold in the playoffs. Because their coaching staff just grinds them to the ground in the regular season, and they're so exhausted come playoff time.
Yeah, we love the Tibbs special. I
Yeah,
love Tibbs, but he does that more than anyone in the world.
I know. Yeah, I think that's the 7/2, and I Sixers could make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think if Embiid's healthy, and then we'll get smoked by Boston. I think you guys would beat us. I think you guys are good. Degen on $2 super chat. Charlie said no number 2 offensive tackle. Opinions order in round 1 of the tackles. This is tough question because it really depends on which teams you're talking about. Like, I think the Raiders would go with Latham over Fashanu because they need a right tackle. And Fashanu, I think, is more. I think he's better served playing left tackle than right tackle, and also depends on blocking schemes. However, for the sake of this question, I think that so after all, obviously, you're gonna have like right now in my mock, I have Fashanu and then Fawaga, and then I have. And then I believe I have Latham and then Fatanu. No, Latham and then Powers Jackson and then Fatanu and then Tyler Guyton and then Graham Barton, then Tyler Guyton. But like I said, it really depends on who needs what. And I think I'm going to move up Graham Barton. I'll get to it later. I'll explain why. But I think I'm going to move him up. But so like like I said, it's a tough question to answer because like it really depends on which team is drafting,
Yeah, no, I agree. I like the way I have them going right now is probably the way that I would draft them. I have Alt and then Latham Fashanu. No, not Fashanu. Latham Fuaga Fashanu and Fatanu. This is too many names with F. This is
I
confusing
know.
me. So I'm like saying it out loud. Now I'm like confusing myself. But those are my top 5 offensive linemen right now.
Okay. Yeah, Degeneron, thanks so much for the $2 super chat. I really appreciate it. Love T says my man put a pop mic filter echo. Is that addressed to me, I assume? I don't know. I don't even know what that is. Do I echo?
I think it's probably me. I keep moving my head around and I keep yelling at things. I talk really loudly, so that's probably what we're talking about here.
Okay. Well, I mean,
please let me know if it's me or Walt.
Yeah, I don't even know what pop mic filter is. I got this microphone from Kenny. He sent it to me via mail, uh, for free. So thank you, Kenny. But yeah, I don't know. I'm very technologically unsavvy. Bagley says the other thing is the Raiders are trying to get Penix in round 2. That might impact the kind of tackle they want in round 1 since Penix left-handed. Yeah. So if their goal is to get Penix, having a great right tackle is a big deal. Because you kind of have to flip everything. So you're right. Number 15 for my mock draft, Colts taking Terry and Arnold. So first corner off the board. Colts need a corner. And think about all the receivers who have joined the AFC South. Well, Calvin Ridley was there last year, but now he's with a different team. You have Stephon Diggs in Houston. You have Nico Collins emerging. You have Tank Dell emerging. I don't know if you want to count Gabe Davis, but the Jaguars paid him a lot of money. So it feels like the receivers have improved in this division. I think it's important to have a great cornerback. So I have the Colts taking Arnold. Who do you have them taking?
Yeah, I also have them taking Arnold. I think that they need a cornerback, like you said, and I think that Arnold he's a very instinctive player, and I think the Colts are going to like that. I know they've taken a lot of athletes under Chris Ballard, but I think it's a little bit too early for Nate Wiggins, and it could be Quinion Mitchell here, but I think Arnold is the safer play here, so I have him penciled in.
Love T says Walt sounds smooth. Other dude, I think Jacob sounds smooth to me, but I don't know.
I'll be honest. I think I was yelling. I get excited and I yell, and then I get too close to the mic because I lean in and read things. So if I'm yelling while I'm like this close to the mic, it makes some bad sounds. That is my guess.
Okay. Mike says lefty Penix to the Raiders. Ghost of Kenny Stabler. That'd be great for them. Raiders need a lot of help. It's been a while since they've been consistently good. They've been good here and there once in a while, but for a long time, it felt like the last time they were consistently really good was the late 90s, early 2000s. You know, when they had John Gruden, Rich Gannon, all those guys, and Tim Brown. Seahawks number 16, Tallis Fuaga. You had him going 14. So I think Seattle taking Fuaga will make a lot of sense because they lost all of their interior linemen from in free agency. So Fuaga could play guard. He can also play tackle. You know, if Abraham Lucas continues to struggle, and he had a great rookie year, but a bad second year. So they can play him at right tackle. They can play him inside. I think this makes a ton of sense for Seattle.
Yeah, I think offensive line's definitely in play for them, but I think their signing of Laken Tomlinson, like that's not like a huge deal by any means, but I think that's kind of a signal of them saying, hey, we need some veteran depth here just to protect ourselves in case we don't get like Tallis Fuaga on the board here. They could go Troy Fatanu, but I think I would go Byron Murphy here for the Seahawks because they need to continue adding to their pass rush. I know they've addressed the defensive tackle position more in recent years. They signed Draymond Jones. They brought in Jonathan Hankins to be a good run stuffer. And Jaron Reed returned to the team too after kind of a mini free agent tour for a couple of years. But I think adding someone like Murphy who can get a lot of interior pressure and be a big-time disruptor next to Jones and Leonard Williams and all those guys, I think that would really help their defense a lot. So I think that they're going to go in that direction. Plus, we know this Seattle regime really likes a lot of athletic type of prospects, and I feel like Murphy's movement skills for his size are really good.
The boss saying Quinion Mitchell's over under is 13.5. I'm not sure who would even consider him before the Colts. Yeah. Where is that prop? Because that over sounds great to me. That's very surprising to me. So let us know which sportsbook that is, and I'm going to Trenton tomorrow, so I could bet it potentially. Love to Eat says Penix is the best quarterback in the draft. Don't go the AFC West. I like Penix a lot. DraftKings, okay. I'll take a look at that when I go to Trenton. But thanks for the heads up about that. Yeah, and Charlie even posted an article saying that that Quinion Mitchell's stock was down. It was on the stock report from last week that his stock is going down. So yeah, that over 13.5 seems great.
Yeah, no, I agree on that. I will probably be locking that in later tonight.
No, Kevin, thanks again so much. Thanks, Kevin, for the $10 super sticker. It's up to $30. Thanks so much, Kevin. Really appreciate it. I can't say enough about this. Like, you're so great, like, contributing like this. It means so much. And again, YouTube ads pay nothing, so this is like 30x what we usually get from Kevin. So thank you so much, Kevin. Fuaga could play left tackle. IMO cleans up his tech, and he is gold. Yeah, I think he could play all over. It makes a lot of sense. He's so good. Mike says, doesn't one cornerback almost always go in the top 10? Modern defenses aren't built from back to front. I don't have to like always go in the top 10. I kind of would have to go back and see, but like, there's no elite cornerback, like, there's like some really good ones, but there's no elite. Like, the elite guys are the quarterbacks. There's going to be a bunch of quarterbacks. There's elite receivers. There's one elite tackle. And then there's Brock Bowers and one. I don't know if Dallas Turner's elite, but he's kind of close. And so I think those are the guys who are going to go in the top 10 or top 13 in this instance. I don't see a corner going.
Yeah, and there's no clear-cut number one corner in this class either. So I think that might push them a little bit down the board where it's a choose your flavor. And maybe that prop is thinking, oh, the Raiders are going to take a cornerback. Maybe that's what they're thinking with that one. But I don't see that happening.
Yeah, me either. Kevin is the man tonight. That's definitely true. DJ said Circa open up and everyone else copied. That happens a lot. So sportsbooks copy off each other all the time. All right, so let's go 17th or 32. I have the Jaguars taking Nate Wiggins. We had a comment about Nate Wiggins going to the Raiders earlier. Jaguars taking him here. I talked about how good the receivers are in the AFC South right now. And I didn't get to the Colts because they took the corner, but yeah, the Colts have Michael Pittman Jr. They just re-signed him. There's been a lot of chatter about the Colts trading for a receiver, whether it's Brandon Ayuk or AJ Brown earlier in the offseason and T Higgins. So it feels like the Colts are going to make a move for one of these receivers. So you have to factor in that as well. And it suddenly feels like about a year ago, it looked like the Jaguars are going to own this division. And like now they're chasing the Texans, and the Texans have 3 elite receivers. Maybe not elite, but they're definitely great. So corners makes so much sense for the Jaguars. So Wiggins here. Who do you have?
I have Quinion Mitchell. Same logic. They need cornerback help. They kind of shuffled a few guys in and out this offseason. I like that they got Ronald Darby as kind of a veteran presence to hold things over in case they don't like whoever is on the board, but they need a long-term partner for Tyson Campbell. I think it could definitely be Wiggins, like you said. He compares similarly to Campbell in that they're kind of tall, fast cornerbacks. So if the Jaguars like that player type, I think they could go for him. But I have Mitchell slightly higher on my big board. I think that what he showcased with his athleticism and play at Toledo was rock solid. So I can see the Jaguars going for him. But like I said, it's kind of a pick your flavor cornerback draft. So I think they're probably going to go with corner if the board shakes out this way. It's just a matter of which one it will be.
Yeah, I think I would have had Mitchell here before seeing Charlie's update in his stock report. So I just wanted to drop him a little more, but he makes all it takes is one team to like him. And so it could be the Jaguars taking him. Cooper Jean, first round cornerback. Yeah, we'll get to him in a bit for sure. Number 18, we talked about Latham before. The Bengals drafting JC Latham. Jonah Williams is gone, so might as well replace him with another Alabama tackle, right? So Latham, I think, is better suited to play right tackle. He could play guard as well. A lot of versatility here for the Bengals, who have had offensive line issues for a long time. So makes sense for them to go line. Who do you have?
Yeah, I have Olu Fashanu being the pick here. Same logic as you. They need a young tackle. I know they signed Trent Brown. I thought that was a smart move just to kind of give them that cushion in case this rookie isn't ready. And I think Fashanu could use some development. So having 2 monster guys at left and right tackle in those 2 guys will be good. And then Fashanu could develop as a right tackle and eventually replace Brown, who's capable of being a swing tackle. So I think if Latham's on the board, I would prefer him to Fashanu. But I think Fashanu, his upside is enormous. So I think the Bengals will look at him and say, yeah, we can definitely do something with him at this point in the draft.
Yeah, so Eric says, surprise Schrager doesn't have Wiggins in the first round. Line to 26.5. If you think he goes 17th, that's probably a good bet. So, like, that's not based on any source info, though. I'm not like super confident in that. So I would not make that bet if you're considering it. It's just I could totally see it being someone else. And like I'll have to go over with Charlie. Charlie will be on next week. So any draft prop stuff. If you have any questions, just keep them in mind. Like not even if like you don't even have to know what they are now. Just like think about it like over the week and weekend. And then like Charlie will be able to answer anything next week. So if anyone can give out any info on the draft and the props, it's him.
Yeah, and I think Wiggins kind of has a wide draft range too because he's really light. He's like 173 pounds on a 6'2" frame and had some injury issues. He got hurt running his 40 at the combine. So I think that could scare some teams off and drop him to the second round. So he could go as high as the Colts at 15, but it also wouldn't surprise me to see him slip out of the first round and be one of the first players taken on day 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's getting hurt in the 40s. It's not a good sign. Maybe like offensive line you can forgive, not corner. Rams number 19. You had Byron Murphy going a little bit earlier. I have him 19 just a replacement for Aaron Donald. Like losing Donald, such a big blow because I thought the Rams could have gone to the Super Bowl this year potentially. I think they have a great roster, at least offensively. Now without Donald, they have questions defensively. I was hoping for him to play one more year because I was kind of curious to see how this Rams team would look with an improved defense because they signed some good players and some more experience for Puka and then Kyron Williams playing a whole year potentially. I think this Rams team had such high upside, but Donald's gone, so got to replace him. Byron Murphy is a good option. Who do you have at 19?
Yeah, if Byron Murphy was on the board, I think the Rams would be excited. I imagine the Seahawks taking Byron Murphy in my hypothetical draft. You remember that draft anecdote you picked up one year where you were like, yeah, after the Jaguars selected Justin Blackmon, Jeff Fisher slammed his glasses on the table. I think that was you that reported that. I imagine Sean McVay doing something, not that he has glasses, but him doing something similar if Byron Murphy goes to an NFC West team. But I think they would address their pass rush still. I have Latu being the pick here. And just the logic is, hey, we need to get some extra pass rush presence in here with Aaron Donald gone. And I know it's not a like-for-like swap. You're doing an interior pass rusher this time. But I think Latu, among the guys on the board, has a very high ceiling. And I know he has injury history and concerns, but he had double-digit sacks in each of his 2 years at UCLA. And I think Sean McVay and those guys will look at that and say he can be an instant contributor. And if he can stay healthy, this will be a solid pick at 19. So that's where I have them going.
Yeah, maybe you can just buy glasses to slam them down.
Yeah, that's what we need. We need to convince him to do that.
Exactly. All right, so 20, the Steelers going Jackson Powers Johnson. I talked about Graham Barton before, moving him up. I have him a little bit later in this mock, and I think in my next update, I'm going to have Graham Barton going here. So the reason I didn't have him going here is because he didn't make a top 30 visit to the Steelers when I was writing this mock draft. And the Steelers are a team that always meets with their first round prospect. They always have him in for top 30 visits. They didn't have Graham Barton in, but they did have him in today. That was reported earlier today. So he's definitely a possibility now. And Barton is like seen as a guard prospect. He played tackle. You can move to guard, but he's also a center. He's played center at Duke. And so I think he's a better prospect than Powers Johnson. So, I have Powers Johnson posted here, but I'm going to move it to Barton. Who do you have here?
Yeah, I have Troy Fautanu here just because he's still on the board, and I know the Steelers would like to add some interior line help. I don't know that he's necessarily capable of playing center, though, so I could see them going with one of the centers here. This is about the range I have. Powers Johnson and Graham Barton coming off the board as well. But I just thought Fautanu was the best offensive lineman on the board. So I plugged him in here, and I was kind of thinking, hey, they'll figure out the rest. Maybe they try to move James Daniels back to center, though that didn't go well the first time. So they could also try to play Fautanu at left tackle and, kick Dan Moore back to the reserve role. I think in an ideal world, they would find a left tackle upgrade, but they might be still into the idea of Dan Moore continuing to improve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels like they need a center so badly. But yeah, any offensive line help would be nice for them. 21 Dolphins going Latu. So you have them going 19. I have them going 21. The Dolphins lost a lot of pass rushing talent this offseason, so they need to replenish that, especially given that they have to go up against Josh Allen twice a year, and then Aaron Rodgers, we could say, healthy twice a year. And who knows, that the Patriots draft a great quarterback. They have that as well. So they need as much pass rushing talent as possible. And Latu has injury problems. If he didn't, he'd be going in the teens for me. So I think he could fall a little bit, but Miami's shown interest in him. So I think this is a good fit. Who do you have here?
Yeah, they had interest in Jalen Phillips too, and he's panned out for them. He had injury and concussion concerns, so I could see that. I have them going with Johnny Newton from Illinois. They lost Christian Wilkins, so they need to add interior defensive line help. And I know that he's a little undersized, but I think his pass rushing ability from that position will make an impact for them. I am a little annoyed that they signed Aaron Brewer to play center, though, because this was like the perfect spot for Graham Barton for a really long time in my mock drafts that I was like working on behind the scenes. And now this pick is much harder. So I'm upset with the Dolphins for that reason.
Damn you, Aaron Brewer. Eric says Latu 20-1 for first defensive player. Now he's 2-1. Was line 21.5 down to 17.5. Wait, Latu is 2-1 to be first defensive player taken. That's way too high because he has the injury problems. That I think could drop him. I feel like it should have been the opposite. Like he should have been 2-1. Now he's 20-1. Like that's pretty wild.
Yeah, that surprises me unless someone knows something about Dallas Turner that we don't know.
Yeah.
But hey, you never know. Like I did consider Latu at 9 for the Bears, but I dropped him because of the injury concerns, and I thought first was safer.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe it's that. Like I said before, Denver likes Latu, but they're probably going to take a quarterback, but they do like him. So, I don't know. Maybe there's something to that, but I know some teams are scared off with that injury. But like I said, all it takes is one. All it takes is one team to draft him. Mike says, Walt, you're really on top of the 30 visits this year. Today, one of the NBC sites said you got all their 32 visits from your website. That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it's every night. That's like what I do. It's kind of schedule based. Like I put my son to bed, then I come down. And then I fire up my laptop. That's the first thing I look at is the 30 visits. So, yeah, so that's really cool. I didn't know about that. All right. So 22, my Philadelphia Eagles, as Kevin Riley would say, drafting Amarius Mims. So I've had Kamari Lassiter going here for a long time, and I think that's a little too high for him. I know his stock has dropped because the workouts weren't as great as people would think. And I was like, what other Georgia player could the Eagles take? Because Bowers is long gone. But Mims makes sense after thinking about it. Now I know they have two tackles set right now. They've Mailata, who just signed an extension. They have Lane Johnson, who's still great. However, Lane Johnson's 34, and the Eagles team always drafts for the future. If you think about like all their picks, like they took a lot of defensive linemen in the past couple of drafts because they knew that Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox are going to be gone. They've taken offensive linemen to replace Jason Kelsey eventually, and that's what they're going to do this year. So I think they're looking at Lane Johnson and be like, how long can he keep playing at a high level? Like they're thinking like what, 2 years? So like they kind of groom Mims to be their next right tackle of the future. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And Mims is a lot of talent. There's some injury concerns with him, but I think that the upside's certainly there. So who do you have the Eagles taking at 22?
I have them going with Nate Wiggins. I think they need more talent at cornerback because Darius Slay and James Bradbury are getting older. And I know they've spent a lot of resources recently at corner. Those have been more mid-round type guys. I think they might take a swing at a guy like Wiggins and say, hey, Vic Fangio, can you develop this guy? But I do like the idea of them getting an offensive tackle that seems very much like something Howie Roseman would do. He loves building up the trenches, so I could 100% see him kind of saying, all right, well, I addressed my defensive line a lot. Now it's time to go to the offensive side, especially since Mims has a high ceiling.
Yeah, in my second round, well, the Eagles have 2 picks. In the second round, I have them taking Lassiter still. So I think they still will take him, but not in the first round. So Quinny Mitchell, we had some questions about him. Number 23. This is Arizona's pick from Minnesota in the trade that I had earlier. So like I said, they got 23 and a first round pick next year in that deal, hypothetical deal. So the Cardinals taking Quinny Mitchell. They really need quarterback help. They have one of the worst secondaries in the NFL. And Mitchell here is, I think, is a good bargain. He could go much earlier, like you have him at 17. But yeah, his stock has been down a little bit. Like teams weren't happy with the film that they saw so much, and they thought that he didn't meet expectations. But I still think he's going to go in the first round. So Mitchell here to Arizona. Who do you have Minnesota taking in 23?
Yeah, I have Minnesota going with Jackson Powers Johnson. I just think they have a need at the guard position. If you look at their roster, they traded Ezra Cleveland last year because they signed Dalton Reisner, and he was playing pretty well in place of Cleveland. But now both of them are gone. So I think that spending a pick on interior alignment to block for JJ McCarthy in this circumstance would be a good use of this pick. And they could play him at guard, or they could move Garrett Bradbury off of center into one of the guard positions. So I like Powers Johnson here. You could go Graham Barton too. I have those guys really neck and neck in my offensive line stuff, and you'll see just how neck and neck it is very soon.
Okay. 24. Speaking of offensive lineman, Troy Fatanu to Dallas. I know it's not likely to be here, but I know Dallas likes him a lot. So this is his floor for sure. And I could see Dallas moving up for him too. And that's kind of like why I mocked him here, because I think Dallas could move up maybe half a dozen spots and draft him because, they missed out on their player last year and they had to settle for Mozzie Smith. And I know that Jerry Jones is kind of desperate right now. He's getting older. It's like, how much longer can he keep running the team? And it feels like that window's closing. And I think he's more likely to just go for it. And I think that he knows that for his team to succeed this year, they're going to need a great left tackle play to make up for Tyron Smith's departure. So I think Dallas can move up for Fatanu, like I said, 6, 7, 8 spots and just kind of go for it. So I think this is more of a team fit. Like I said, I think he's going to be off the board most likely, but I think they can move up for him. So who do you have Dallas taking?
Yeah, I have them going with Graham Barton here. Similar logic in that they need to upgrade their offensive line to make sure Dak Prescott has the protection he needs. Their biggest holes right now, if you play Tyler Smith at left tackle, you're looking at left guard and center, and Graham Barton can play either of those, and he has experience playing tackle too. So I think you just look at that plug and play versatility from him, and the Cowboys would say, hey, let's just take this guy. We know it's a safe option. It's almost kind of like the Travis Frederick pick because I've also seen like some places have Graham Barton not as a first round talent, like some ranked in the 50s. And I'm like, that's too low for him. He's really going to be a good starter. So I think Cowboys would go Barton in this case, but I could see them moving up for Fatanu. And if Fatanu is still on the board, I think they'd run to make that pick. And then they would say, either him or Tyler Smith's going to be our left tackle of the future, and they'll let them battle it out for it.
Yeah, both are super versatile. So that's whoever loses can play guard, and so it's pretty great for them. 25, Cooper DeJean to the Packers. The Packers lost Rasul Douglas. I feel like they kind of regret that trade because they made that deal when they were struggling last year, and then they caught fire. And you have to wonder, like, if they had Rasul Douglas against the Niners, that game was super close. Like, maybe they could have won. So they kind of make up for it here with DeJean. I think that secondary makes a ton of sense. And the Packers are a team that loves to draft athletic players. And DeJean's definitely fits that description. So who do you have here?
I have DeJean here, too. I think that everything you say applies. And they also picked a very athletic Iowa player in Lucas Van Ness in the first round last year. So they would have gotten a good look at Cooper DeJean then. So they'll have extra work done on him, perhaps. So I think it's just a sensible fit at this point.
Mm-hmm. Eric's saying Barton is minus 2,000 in the first round. That's a wild number. I feel like I think he will go first round, but I think if you're one of these publications who doesn't have him in the first round, like you were talking about, like you almost have to bet the no, right? Seems like a great deal for them. Love He says, I think Cooper falls. I'd love to know why. Why do you think that? All right. So number 26 Buccaneers. You mentioned Graham Barton. Here he is. To Tampa. I feel like Tampa really needs to improve their interior blocking. What they could do is they could draft the right tackle, move Godicke inside. I think that's an option as well. I guess like Barton could play right tackle, like hypothetically, but I think he's more suited to play guard in the NFL, and that's what Tampa needs. They need to protect their investments. They re-signed Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans, and they have to make sure that that connection works. And having improved offensive line play in the interior would help that. So, who do you have Tampa taking?
I have them going with Chop Robinson here. They let Shaq Barrett go this offseason, and they haven't really replaced him. Yeah, they got Randy Gregory, but I think he's kind of past his prime, better in a reserve role at this point. And Tryon Shoyinka hasn't kind of panned out as they hoped as a first-round pick. I like Yaya Diaby a lot. I thought he was a good sleeper last year, and he's panned out as pass rusher. But adding Chop Robinson, a really high ceiling type of guy, I think he would take over for Tryon Shoyinka, and they could really try to milk the potential that Robinson has and say, all right, Tryon Shoyinka kind of is what he is at this point. But I think upgrading that pass rush rotation is high on their list of needs, and they could definitely go offensive line here like you have them doing, but I don't think that there's any prospects that are a particularly great fit at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Love T says Cooper Sneed tweener effect. Okay. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, you just kind of don't know where to put him. Like some guys who drop in the draft tend to be tweeners for sure. Eric asking, is linebacker at the end of the first round completely out of the question in your opinion? No, I don't think so. I think a linebacker could sneak into the first round. I don't have any here, but that could happen. I think there are going to be a bunch of linebackers drafted in round 2, though.
Yeah, that kind of seems to be more the range for them. I mean, never say never, but that's kind of where I've been seeing them. I haven't seen a lot of them mocked, and if they do, they're usually sneaking in.
Mm-hmm. Magnus saying Packers could take Edger and Cooper, but I think they'd rather trade down for him. Yeah, Cooper could go. In fact, if he didn't have some character concerns, I think he might sneak into the first round. But he has some character stuff that teams are worried about, so that's why I have him going later. Hearing Drew Jr. Colson buzz, yeah, he's another one. I think round 2 makes sense, but I don't think it'll be crazy to see a linebacker go end of first round. 27. So you had Chop Robinson going 26. I'm going 27 to Arizona. However, in the spirit of Game of Thrones, because Tom and I are I'm rewatching it. He's watching for the first time. So to quote Varys, a little bird sang to me recently, recently as in a few hours ago, saying that Darius Robinson's in play here for Arizona. So in my next update, it's gonna be Robinson here to the Cardinals. So who do you have the Cardinals drafting?
I have them going with Kool-Aid McKinstry. You had them taking cornerback a few picks earlier in your projected trade. I obviously didn't have that trade, so I think at this stage, the Cardinals, their cornerback room, Sean Murphy-Bunting, I think, is their best cornerback. That's not a good situation to be in. Their other projected starters are Garrett Williams and Starling Thomas the 4th or 5th. I can't remember. I think it's the 5th. Either way, not a good situation to be in. Kool-Aid at least gives them a high upside guy, and I think Jonathan Gannon can maybe get the most out of him and kind of coach him up a little bit. So I'm going to go with him at 27 here.
If it was Starling Thomas the 4th, I could see them like passing a corner, but the 5th, forget about it.
Yep, for sure.
MN10 and M says Brian Thomas Jr. 28. I could see him easily going in top 17. I think it could go earlier too. It's just like fit. Like where does he fit? So let's scroll up a little bit. Arizona, they take a receiver earlier, so no. Tampa, probably not. They have money dedicated to the receivers. I could see him going receiver, but I think other places more likely. Packers, no. They have so many young receivers. Dallas, I think they could go receiver, but I know they want to tackle. That's their goal right now. So no to Dallas. Arizona again, no. Eagles, they're paying so much money to the top 2 receivers. I don't think it makes that much sense. It could happen though. Miami, probably not. Steelers, they love drafting receivers in the second round. They've had so much success with them. Rams, no, they're set at receiver. Bengals, it sounds like Higgins is going to be back this year, so Don't think so. And then Jaguars could do it for sure. But I think they're more likely to go corner. But like it's like where does Brian Thomas go? Like, yes, his talent for sure says he should go earlier, but it's all about finding fits here. And like ideally, like I'd have him like around number 20. But yeah, just gonna find a spot for him. John says, yeah, I'd love for him to be there of the Bills. I've seen him as high as number 10. I mean, we've seen some surprising receivers go early. You know, John Ross, for example. Like teams can fall in love with like physical talent at receiver. So going if he goes 10, like I wouldn't be like completely shocked. But I think that's a little too early for him, considering that like he's not a finished product. He's kind of raw.
Yeah, this is also a deep receiver class, so that might naturally push some talented guys down the board in the first round as other positions come off the board. But he's another guy that I'd say this is his floor, probably 20. If the Bills have him on the board at 28, I'd be shocked if they didn't take him.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, if he goes in the top 15, I would not be like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe this. Like if the Colts took him at 15, I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes some sense at least. If a team that didn't need a receiver took him, I'd be like, that doesn't make any.
Yeah,
He's a guy I want to slot earlier, but I can't. I have him to the Bills as well here at 28.
okay, yeah, I might as well talk about that. Bills going Brian Thomas Jr. I feel like they have to go receiver almost. Maybe they wait till the second round, but I don't know. I think if Thomas or Donnie Mitchell are available, just they seem like no brainers. They lost Stephon Diggs, they lost Gabe Davis. Their top outside receivers, Khalil Shakir. I like him a little bit, but he shouldn't be your number one guy on the outside. So Thomas here. So you have him as well.
Yeah, they need to take a receiver if there's a talented enough one on the board, and I can see them moving up a little bit for Thomas too. Like if one of these teams in front of them has their target go off the board, I could see the Bills moving up and just saying, all right, we want to secure this guy and make sure we're in good shape here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, MN saying Jags and Indy. Indy's another one. You mentioned the Colts potentially taking him at 15. I can see that as well. Like I said, but I think the Colts are going to try to trade for a receiver. I think they want a veteran receiver. But yeah, if they go Thomas, it wouldn't shock me either. So that's another spot for sure. But I do think the spots are limited. Like, he says Jaguars and Indy, and like there aren't that many others. So if the Jaguars and Colts don't like him, then he might fall to 28. Sorry, number 29 Lions going Kool-Aid McKinstry. I've had this pick here for a while. If Jackson Powers Johnson is available, I think he might be the pick. However, McKinstry would make a lot of sense for them as well. Cam Sutton's gone for his off the field stuff, so they need a top corner to deal with all the receivers that they have to deal with in the NFC. So who do you have the Lions drafting?
Yeah, so this one is kind of a little bit strange. I go a little off the board here. I have Zach Frazier as the pick from West Virginia. He's getting a lot of buzz, and he just strikes me as a Dan Campbell guy. He's like that kneecap biter type. He has a wrestling background. He can be guard or center. So sort of similar to Jackson Powers Johnson, but just a little less buzz surrounding him than JPJ. So I think Frazier could be a great pick. He could learn under Zeitler and Glasgow, and if he's ready to go right away, he can be a plug-and-play starter. If not, fantastic interior backup who has long-term potential as a starter with that unit. Mm-hmm. Having him next to Frank Ragnow, imagine having to go through either a professional wrestler or a college or high school level wrestler or someone who played through a fractured throat.
I know, it's crazy. You gotta love those Dan Campbell guys. Number 30 Baltimore, Tyler Guyton. We talked about this a week ago, where like the Ravens are gonna draft a great player who falls to them. It happens all the time. I feel like Guyton could go earlier. If Dallas is on the board and Fatano's not there, I think Guyton is the pick. So he could certainly be drafted half a dozen picks earlier. So the Ravens getting a good deal here on a lineman, and they lost 3 offensive linemen this offseason.
Yeah, I have Amarius Mims still on the board, so I think that they would go with him. But they're going to just get whoever falls to them. That's what they always do. It always seems like a great value. And they can develop Mims and have him compete with Daniel Falale and just have really good size at tackle. Great upside for them. So I think it probably comes down to a tackle because that seems like the position where there's the glut of talent that they'll be picking around here.
Mm-hmm. We comment here. MN says, I know you said Steelers like second round receivers, but I could see that being the third likely spot for Brian Thomas along with Jacksonville Indy. That would require them meeting him with a top 30 visit because they didn't do that as far as I know. And like I said before, the Steelers, they always draft players they meet with for top 30 visits in the first round. So it could happen. It could happen the next few days, but if they take Thomas, like that bucks a long trend that they've had with Tomlin. So Bagley says, I'll be doing cartwheels in my living room if we land Mitchell without having to trade up. I feel like any of these receivers at the end of the first round, like you would like boo on your pick. It was that in reference to
I think it's actually in reference to Adonai Mitchell.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure though. I know Love said they were a Chiefs fan.
Right. Yeah, it's funny that one guy likes it and the other doesn't. Number 31. So I have the Niners taking Jordan Morgan here. They're doing some thinking. I think it's more likely to be Johnny Newton. The Niners love to bolster the trenches. They're kind of like the Chiefs and the Eagles in that line of thinking. And the Niners have lost some defensive tackle talent recently. You know, our Eric Armstead's gone. And I know they still have some good players there, but they could use some guys for the future. So I like Newton here. It says Morgan, but I'm going to go with Johnny Newton to the Niners at 31. Who do you like? Who do you have here?
Yeah, so I have them going with a receiver, which sounds weird, but I think they're going to be forced into trading Brandon Ayuk. Just doesn't sound like they're willing to pay him. They're really not able to because they don't have cap space beyond next year, and they need to extend Brock Purdy eventually, unless they're just willing to let him walk. So I have Xavier Worthy as the pick, and I know people will say, "Well, why not Adonai Mitchell here, another receiver?" The reason is because a couple years ago, the 49ers spent a third-round pick on Danny Gray to kind of add that field stretcher to their team. That pick hasn't panned out. I could see them looking at Xavier Worthy and saying, hey, this guy can really take the top off of defense if we can develop him as a route runner in addition to Debo. Then we have even more ways to beat you on offense. So that's why I have Xavier Worthy there. I'm not overly confident in that one, but I think receiver is definitely in play for them.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Spoiler alert here earlier, Chiefs going Adonai Mitchell. Even before the Rice stuff off the field, it felt like receiver was definitely in play. They signed Marquise Brown, but it's not a long-term solution. And so getting a first-round receiver to kind of address that huge need, I think is a huge deal. But now you have the Rice situation, so that just adds on to it. So I think receiver is likely here in the first round. And Andy Reid has a history of drafting receivers in the first round. It's not just offensive defense alignment for him. So he likes his receivers as well. So who do you have here?
Yeah, I have a receiver too. I just have Ladd McConkey penciled in here. I think Charlie had a report that McConkey's more of a day two guy, but I could see the Chiefs kind of looking at him and saying, hey, this is a guy who's just going to get open a lot with his route running, and that's going to be good for Patrick Mahomes kind of to have. I don't want to compare him to Cole Beasley because I think he has better upside than Cole Beasley, but kind of that guy who's just always open and Mahomes to have another safety valve over the middle of the field. So I think with Brown working as a field stretcher and then Kelsey and McConkey kind of working to get open in the middle of the field, I think that would be good for the Chiefs without Rice. Then you could bring back Rice, turn him out loose on the outside, move him into the slot as you see fit. But I think McConkey's my guy right now. But, I could see the case for Mitchell here 100%.
Yeah, I think there are a bunch of receivers who can go here. It could be Leggett, as Bagley says. It could be it could be a number of receivers, and McConkey included. So yeah, I agree with that. Degeneron asking any hunch on the Ayuk situation. Yeah, Jacob touched on it. I think he will be traded as well. I think he's more likely to be traded than Higgins at this point. And Higgins even said that he expects to be playing in Cincinnati this upcoming season. But yeah, I do think Ayuk will be dealt. So receiver totally makes sense at 31. And if not 31, second round, I think. As John says, Travis Kelce isn't getting any younger. Dumb saying, by the way, since nobody's getting younger, uh, except for Benjamin Button, he got younger. That's it. That's the only guy.
That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah. So, yeah, I never liked that saying either. It's like I found myself writing in the past, like, oh, he's getting older. It's like, yeah, we are all getting older. So, um, yeah, so that's one of those funny things where like you catch yourself writing these cliches and you're like, this is stupid. Why am I writing it?
Yeah, no, it's a weird thing where you have that going on, but yeah, we have all these sayings that we say, and sometimes we don't think about them, and then you're like, oh yeah, that is kind of stupid to say.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so that's about it for the show tonight. Thanks so much, guys, for watching and commenting. And thanks so much for Kevin, $30 in super chats and super stickers. Again, really appreciate this, Kevin. Like, you don't know how much this helps us out. This would normally be like $1, $1.50 at most show, and you give us $30, degenerate on $2. So yeah, just really appreciate you guys. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that mean a lot to us. And one more plug from my book, Jerks of the College Years, on Amazon. So check that out. It's another way to help support the show. Jacob, do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. I will be sharing a lot of my work from the pre-draft process there. Got a ton of stuff that'll be coming out. My favorite sleepers, potential busts, small college prospects that, FCS and Division II type prospects that might get drafted. We'll be writing that up. And I'll have plenty of mock drafts over the next week or so. We're also going to see if I can get AI to tell me what an AI mock draft might look like. And then I could be like,
awesome.
This is either great or terrible. And then we'll see if it beats me, then I'll be sad. But we'll see if I can learn how to use AI in time for that to happen. But yeah, plenty of fun stuff coming up for this draft week. And yeah, looking forward to parsing through this with you guys and trying to be as accurate as possible.
That's a great idea. I'm looking forward to seeing what AI comes with. It's either going to be the best mock draft ever, or it's going to be like complete garbage. So I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, once again, guys, thank you so much. Thank you to Kevin and Degenerate On for your contributions. Really appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow. I don't know if Kenny will be on. We'll see. I know Kenny has some scheduling stuff with work. He has some early meetings. But I'll be on regardless of if we have a guest or not tomorrow, and then Thursday again, and then Saturday, the normal schedule this week. Next week we're gonna have definitely shows Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday it's gonna be up in the air. Depends on how late the draft goes, but I think I'm gonna be on after the draft. But no show on Saturday. It'll be on Sunday instead. We're gonna have a wrap-up show for the draft on Sunday night during draft week instead of Saturday, because Saturday night's I'm gonna be so wiped. I'm gonna be so tired. I'm always am after day 3. I won't be able to talk. So it'll be pretty rough. So I'll be more rested on Sunday. So we'll do a wrap-up show on Sunday instead of Saturday. So Bagley saying doesn't have knowledge cut off late 2021. I think some AI is not connected to the internet and some is. Like, you have to find AI that is connected to the internet. So I think that's the key. And he said we'll be interested to see it make a 2022 mock if that's the case. Yeah, I think like it really depends on what AI you're using.
I know one of my coworkers was able to get like some sort of, I think it got an AI to do bracket predictions for the NCAA tournament. So I'll have to see which source he used. But yeah, there are ones that have cutoffs of late 2021 or 2022. So I'm going to have to touch base with him about that.
Yeah, it's usually the free versions that are cut off. But if you spend a little bit, you could get a good one, or I don't know, like you might be able to get a free one that's good. So like I said, I'm looking forward to that. So Jacob, always great to do the show with you. And once again, guys, thank you so much for watching and commenting. And I'll be back tomorrow, and everyone have a good night.
All right, sounds good.